Behold this sea of humanity, every face an untold epic, every beating heart a universe unto itself. Each human being is a walking cosmos, a complex symphony of billions of cells. We humans, the apex species of this planet, we have tamed the restless oceans, conquered the skies, and now our gaze is firmly fixed upon the stars. We love, we hate, we dream, and we relentlessly question the unknown. But perhaps our most profound enigma remains. Who are we? Where did this incredible odyssey truly begin? To unravel this mystery, we must rewind the very fabric of time, hurtling backward to a profound vanishing point, to an epoch before our world even existed. We must journey 4.5 billion years into the deep past, into a primordial realm utterly alien to the world we know today, a realm where the very prologue of our existence was forged. Consider where you are right now, resting comfortably as you watch this. But have you ever paused to wonder what this exact location looked like eons ago? Was this sanctuary always the way it is today? Far from it. The very ground beneath your homes, schools, and cities, our entire planet, was once a seething, molten cauldron, boiling at an incomprehensible 8,000 degrees. To grasp the sheer magnitude of this inferno, consider this. Water violently boils at a mere 100 degrees Celsius, and human tissue begins to sustain severe burns at just 75 degrees. Even as the mercury edges past 50 degrees, humanity is pushed to its absolute physical limits, triggering widespread panic and global news headlines. Take a moment, pause, and envision this. Eons ago, with surface temperatures surging to a staggering 8,000 degrees, what kind of apocalyptic nightmare must our world have been? Under this unrelenting, searing heat, the very concept of life was a biological impossibility. It was a sterile hellscape, completely devoid of sprawling forests, wandering beasts, or humanity. Instead, the entire planet was a chaotic, incandescent orb. Our Earth, in its entirety, was nothing more than a relentless, churning ocean of volcanic fury. It begs the ultimate question. In a realm where even the faintest spark of existence seemed fundamentally impossible, how did the genesis of life ever take hold? How did this primordial wasteland transform into a habitable sanctuary? Especially when we look back 4 billion years at our celestial neighbors. Setting Mars aside, consider Venus and Mercury, worlds that blister at a mere 400 to 700 degrees Celsius, environments so profoundly hostile and unforgiving that the mere concept of life taking root there defies all imagination. Yet, with our own planet trapped in an 8,000-degree apocalyptic fever, how did the fragile spark of life ever manage to ignite? The key to this paradox lies buried within an even greater enigma, the genesis of our world. How exactly was this planet forged from the chaos? To fully comprehend this cosmic alchemy, we must first cast our gaze outward into the wider universe. For our Earth is but a single thread woven into a magnificent tapestry of infinite stars. Join us as we venture into the deep cosmos to unravel this profound mystery, an enigma that continues to baffle the greatest minds in modern astrophysics. But before we embark on this journey, I invite you to share your thoughts down in the comments. When you stand beneath the canopy of night and gaze up into the cosmic abyss, what is it that you truly see? And conversely, when you gaze into the daylight sky, what is it that you see? The answers are as varied as the people you ask. But viewed through a cosmic lens, a clear daytime sky reveals something far simpler. Drifting atmospheric vapors, abstract wisps of condensed moisture, and the blinding glare of our local star. Yet, when the veil of night falls, the canvas transforms. We are greeted by a breathtaking multitude of shimmering lights, an endless expanse that defies all human calculation. However, it would be a profound mistake to assume that every flickering dot piercing the darkness is simply a distant star. Hidden among those luminous pinpricks are wandering planets, raging suns, and even entire, sprawling galaxies. Together they form the grand architecture of what we call celestial bodies. It was precisely through decoding the secrets of these cosmic entities that modern astrophysics uncovered the ultimate genesis, the Big Bang, the primordial cataclysm that would eventually forge our very own sun. Yet, the Big Bang was merely the opening act in the grand, violent theater of Earth's creation. But how exactly did we get from that initial cosmic spark to a living world? Let us trace the journey. Throughout the 19th century, a relentless pursuit of cosmic understanding consumed the minds of astronomers across the globe as they tirelessly sought to map the unknown depths of space. It was amidst this era of astronomical renaissance in the roaring 1920s that Californian astronomer Edwin Hubble stumbled upon two paradigm-shifting revelations about our cosmos. First, Hubble shattered our localized worldview. He revealed that those faint, nebulous smudges suspended in the dark were not mere gas clouds, but entire, majestic galaxies, and they numbered in the billions. Peering deeper into the cosmic abyss, Hubble uncovered a second, even more profound truth. These immense galactic islands were actively receding from one another at an alarming rate. The staggering implication was undeniable. The universe was not a static void. The very fabric of space-time was stretching, continuously expanding, and growing infinitely larger. Years later, another piece of the puzzle emerged, a revelation so radical it sent shockwaves through the scientific establishment, entirely shattering their foundational beliefs. The spark ignited beneath a vast open canopy of stars, when a visionary astronomer named Georges Lemaitre found himself haunted by a single ultimate question: how did this grand cosmic architecture truly begin? It took years of relentless pursuit to decipher this enigma, but when the mathematical fog finally lifted, he unveiled a truth so profound it sent shockwaves through the entire scientific community. He had cracked the ultimate code, the absolute genesis of our Earth, the Sun, the Moon, and the vast architecture of the cosmos itself. Through his pioneering vision, astronomer Georges Lemaitre deduced that if the cosmos is perpetually expanding outward, then logic dictates that in the distant past it was smaller, and plunging even deeper into the abyss of time, it must have been infinitely dense. This meant that eons ago, every atom, every star, and all the matter in existence was compressed into a single, unimaginably dense singularity. A primordial atom that, under unfathomable pressure, violently ruptured. This cataclysmic detonation is what we now call the Big Bang, a cosmic eruption that, roughly 4.6 billion years ago, ignited the genesis of our own local pocket of space. Here, colossal molecular clouds of stellar dust and gas, a sprawling nebula, congregated over millions of years. As these cosmic materials churned, unrelenting gravitational forces began to build a crushing internal pressure. Then, lurking just on the fringes of this dense nebula, an ancient, dying star reached the end of its stellar life cycle and catastrophically collapsed, triggering a blinding supernova explosion. The shockwaves from this colossal detonation unleashed a torrent of kinetic energy, violently churning the nebula. The once drifting particles were thrown into absolute chaos, colliding into one another at terrifying speeds. This extreme friction and gravitational compression triggered yet another monumental eruption. The sheer destructive force was so absolute that it pulverized neighboring nascent stars, shredding them back into raw, swirling clouds of cosmic debris. Within this turbulent crucible, the temperature and pressure reached a critical mass. The fragmented cosmic dust began to fiercely fuse together, collapsing inward to forge something truly extraordinary. A brilliant, incandescent celestial body. And this magnificent celestial body is what we now know as our sun, a radiant, monumental star that would become the anchor of our existence. It was only in the wake of this blazing star's violent birth that the forging of our Earth could truly begin. But how did this chaotic debris forge a living world? Let us uncover the process. While the explosive birth of the sun was unfolding at the center, the surrounding space remained fiercely chaotic. searing clouds of primordial gas and cosmic dust were caught in a relentless, violent dance around the newborn star. Gradually, immense gravitational forces flattened this debris into a vast, swirling protoplanetary disk. Within this fiery ring, microscopic particles began to aggressively collide, fuse, and grow. Eventually, they carved out stable orbital paths around the sun. In a mesmerizing cosmic ballet, these nascent formations circled their stellar parent, much like children playfully racing around their guardian. Thus began an extraordinary game of planetary accretion. As these primordial fragments of dust and gas endlessly orbited the sun, they violently crashed and fused together. Driven by their own mounting gravity, they began to condense and collapse inward. Much like a snowball gathering mass as it hurtles down a mountain, these microscopic grains of cosmic dust began to coalesce, forging the first primitive meteoroids. Through a relentless sequence of violent collisions and fusion, these rocky bodies grew increasingly massive. This chaotic accretion gave rise to colossal protoplanets. Over millions of years, these embryonic worlds swelled into the majestic gas giants we recognize today, the titanic realms of Jupiter and Saturn. Meanwhile, closer to the inferno of the sun, the denser terrestrial planets were forged: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. One by one, these celestial bodies solidified, locking into their designated orbital trajectories. It was as if a grand cosmic stage was being meticulously set, an intricate celestial ballet where an ensemble of 8, perhaps once 9 planets gracefully assumed their permanent positions around our star. Through eons of catastrophic impacts, these primitive clusters of rock and ash fused and expanded, slowly molding into planetary spheres, not entirely unlike a child packing layers of Earth onto a growing sphere of mud. And as it accumulated mass, it swelled into a colossal entity. Amidst this chaotic planetary forge, one remarkably large incandescent sphere of rock emerged, distinct and dominant among the surrounding cosmic rubble. As it finally anchored itself into a stable orbit around the sun, it claimed its rightful place as the third, and perhaps most extraordinary, celestial body in our solar system. Make no mistake, this colossal, glowing monolith of rock is none other than our sanctuary, the very ground we stand upon today, our fragile, beautiful Earth. But in its infancy, our world was neither serene nor hospitable. The entire planet was entombed in a churning, global ocean of molten magma, a hellscape where towering mountains of rock were forged and liquefied in an instant, and its atmosphere was a choked miasma of toxic gases. Billowing clouds of noxious dust and vapor swirled relentlessly, as if an apocalyptic cosmic tempest was brewing across the entire planet. From above, the planet endured a merciless, unending bombardment of meteorites, while deep within, decaying radioactive elements stoked an infernal, inextinguishable fire. This transformed the entire globe into a raging, planetary furnace. Yet, over the slow march of eons, a profound and wondrous metamorphosis began to unfold deep within the Earth's fiery depths. Within this global ocean of molten magma, a monumental sorting process commenced. Heavy metals and lighter minerals began to aggressively separate, sinking and rising according to their respective densities. The heaviest elements, primarily iron and nickel, plummeted toward the center of the planet, pooling together to forge a colossal, super-dense and solid metallic core. Conversely, lighter, buoyant silicates and aluminum slowly drifted to the surface. As they met the cold void of space, they gradually cooled, solidifying to form the planet's primordial outer crust. In this way, the Earth began to architect its very anatomy, an impenetrable, beating heart of solid iron at its center, encased within a rugged, hardened shell of rock. However, our world was far from tranquil. Beneath this fragile new crust, the subterranean tapestry of rock and metal continued to boil with catastrophic fury. There was no distinction between day and night, for the sheer blinding incandescence of the Earth's own lava oceans easily outshone the pale light of the distant sun. This was an era of violent cosmic architecture. Every embryonic world was aggressively carving out its orbital territory, locked in a brutal demolition derby where colossal planetary collisions continuously annihilated and birthed entirely new celestial bodies. Amidst this celestial chaos, another monumental event unfolded, one that birthed our world's eternal companion, the pale satellite that has captivated human imagination since childhood. But the creation of our moon was no gentle process. It was forged in absolute apocalypse. In truth, it was only through the moon's violent genesis that Earth could ever be tamed into a habitable sanctuary. Had the moon never been forged, the fragile web of life on Earth might never have materialized. But how did this cosmic dependency begin? Let us delve into the devastating origins of our lunar neighbor. Deep within the chaotic orbital lanes of the early solar system, a rogue planetary body was hurtling through the void at terrifying speeds. Its name was Theia. While not quite the mass of our proto-Earth, it was a cosmic leviathan in its own right. Astrophysicists theorized that Theia was roughly the size of modern-day Mars, a wandering behemoth that had veered fatally off course, spiraling directly toward our young, molten planet. Like Earth, Theia was a dense sphere of silicate rock and heavy metals, but its trajectory was doomed. Drifting through the vast expanse of the inner solar system, it was caught in an inescapable orbital tug, surfing the invisible, relentless waves of Earth's gravity. Imagine the terrifying majesty of this moment. Two planetary titans hurtling toward one another across the frozen vacuum of space. No deafening roar, no audible scream. Just a profound, eerie silence precluding a cataclysm of unimaginable proportions. It was the ultimate calm before the cosmic storm, and Theia's fatal rendezvous with Earth was no mere accident. It was the inescapable consequence of chaotic gravitational warfare. Earth, still struggling to stabilize its own primordial orbit, found itself locked in a fatal gravitational embrace, violently yanked toward the approaching rogue. Like two colossal gladiators meeting on a cosmic battlefield, the two worlds collided with apocalyptic fury. The resulting impact was an event of such terrifying magnitude, it didn't merely shake the young Earth, it threatened to shatter our entire world into oblivion. Picture two colossal mountains of fire slamming together at cosmic velocities. Theia savagely ripped into the Earth's mantle, violently spewing millions of tons of pulverized planetary debris from both worlds out into the dark abyss. Earth's entire outer crust was instantly liquefied in the inferno. As for Theia, the rogue planet was entirely obliterated, its physical form shattered, its existence utterly erased from the solar system. The raw kinetic energy unleashed was so staggering that, were it to happen today, it would burn with the blinding intensity of 1,000 suns. The heavens ignited in a blinding flash, unleashing a torrential rain of superheated ash, molten rock, and liquid metal. It was a catastrophic blowout. A massive section of Earth's mantle was violently ejected into the vacuum, resembling the colossal fireball of two fuel tankers detonating upon impact. Millions of incandescent fragments were blasted thousands of miles outward, plunging the surrounding space into absolute anarchy. Some debris spiraled inevitably toward the sun's furnace, while other fragments were cast adrift, lost forever to the infinite void. Yet, Earth's relentless gravity clawed back the surviving remnants. It captured the pulverized wreckage of both worlds, tethering the debris into a massive, swirling accretion disk orbiting the wounded planet. It formed a ring system rivaling Saturn's, but infinitely more violent and superheated. Within this blazing halo, jagged boulders of molten rock endlessly smashed together, shattering and aggressively refusing in a brutal cycle. Had you stood on the Earth's molten surface, the sky above would have blazed with the light of 10,000 miniature suns. The sheer thermal shock of the impact had instantly flash-boiled any water and lighter elements, venting them into space. All that remained in orbit was dense, heavy rock. It was a terrifying waltz of absolute apocalypse. Yet, amidst this ultimate destruction, the stage was being set for a profound new creation. But this shattered debris did not remain desolate for long. The invisible, unyielding tether of gravity began to pull them back. Microscopic particles collided and fused. Jagged rocks locked together, one after another, in a relentless process of cosmic accretion. Gradually, these scattered fragments morphed into massive, wandering meteoroids. Over the slow march of millions of years, these colossal boulders continued to violently collide and fuse, slowly assembling into a single, massive entity. Driven by the crushing weight of its own gravity, this nascent body was sculpted into a perfect sphere. In its infancy, it was nothing more than a churning ocean of liquid magma, a tormented landscape scarred by violent volcanic eruptions and relentless asteroid bombardments. Yet, over eons, this fiery inferno cooled. Its molten surface hardened into the stark, desolate world we now call our moon. Because it was forged from the pulverized flesh of the early Earth, its isotopic signature and rocky composition are a near-perfect mirror of our own planet. However, the apocalyptic heat of the collision boiled away its volatile elements, leaving it bone-dry and significantly less dense. In those primordial days, this newborn moon loomed terrifyingly close, orbiting at a mere one-third of its current distance. Slowly, relentlessly, it began to drift away into the cosmic void. But have you ever paused to imagine this spectacle if the moon had remained chained to that ancient, intimate orbit? What would our night sky look like today? Picture a celestial giant dominating the heavens, a monolithic silver orb swelling across the night sky, appearing 3 times more massive and imposing than the sun itself. Under the crushing grip of its gravitational pull, Earth's rotation would be so frantic that a single day would be reduced to a mere 5 hours. Thankfully, cosmic evolution charted a different course, a profound reminder that in the chaotic theater of the universe, destruction often paves the way for perfect equilibrium. Driven by tidal friction, our satellite slowly backed away, charting a steady retreat that continues to this very moment. Modern astrophysics confirms that the moon is escaping Earth's embrace at a precise rate of 3.8 centimeters every single year, pushing it to its present orbit, roughly 384,000 kilometers across the dark void. Yet, despite the vast chasm of space, its gravitational grip remains unyielding. Today, when we cast our eyes upward, we are met with the serene, familiar face of a silent guardian, a tranquil monument born of ancient chaos. But peer closer. Its visage is heavily scarred with deep impact craters and vast, frozen plains of basaltic lava. These brutal blemishes and deep-seated wounds are the fossilized echoes of an ancient cosmic war. They stand as silent witnesses, proving that our moon was not born in tranquility, but was violently forged from the apocalyptic ashes of a planetary collision. Even today, this celestial sentinel governs our world. It commands the night in the brilliant glare of a full moon and retreats into the abyssal shadows during the new moon. Yet its very existence is a profound reminder of a universal truth. Out of absolute cosmic annihilation arises new creation. Without Theia's catastrophic impact, our lunar companion would simply not exist, and the evolutionary path of life on Earth would have been fundamentally altered. But with the moon locked in its orbit, how did the stage finally set for biology to take hold? Let us plunge into the next chapter of our origins. The forging of Earth, the deluge of water, and the primordial spark of life. The chaotic first chapter of our world had drawn to a close. The moon had taken its rightful place in the heavens, and our future blue planet, once a raging sphere of magma, was finally beginning to cool. Yet it remained an utterly desolate, irradiated wasteland, a realm devoid of sprawling oceans or breathable air. It was a suffocating hellscape of hardening basalt, blanketed by a dense, boiling miasma of highly toxic volcanic gases. Bound together, the Earth and its new lunar companion continued their silent voyage around the Sun. But the cosmic narrative was rapidly approaching a monumental turning point. The stage was set for an unprecedented celestial bombardment, the catastrophic arrival of life-giving water, and hidden within it, the primordial spark that would ignite biological existence on Earth, the very catalyst that ignited life on Earth. In truth, this is a sweeping epic, a journey that descends from swirling clouds of cosmic dust down to the crushing depths of ancient oceans, culminating in the first fragile heartbeat of existence. Let us explore this genesis in unprecedented detail. Earth was still in its violent infancy. Its surface was a churning, tempestuous ocean of liquid magma. Colossal volcanoes ruptured the crust with relentless fury, choking the skies with impenetrable veils of ash and volcanic dust. But the wider cosmos was far from at peace. The early solar system remained a chaotic shooting gallery. Countless icy comets, rugged asteroids, and jagged metallic shrapnel hurtled indiscriminately through the void. Inevitably, this relentless swarm of cosmic wanderers was ensnared by the Earth's inescapable gravitational pull. This relentless bombardment endured for millions of years, but eventually the planet's blistering surface began to cool. The sprawling seas of incandescent magma slowly congealed, hardening into a stark, fractured crust of solid, blackened rock. From the endless volcanic vents, titanic plumes of suffocating vapor and superheated steam billowed upward. As these noxious emissions accumulated in the upper atmosphere, they wove a thick, suffocating shroud, forging the Earth's very first primitive atmosphere. Under the crushing weight of the planet's gravity, these hyper-dense clouds finally gave way, unleashing a torrential global deluge. But this was no ordinary meteorological storm. Amidst the torrential downpour, an armada of incoming meteoroids and frozen comets plummeted from the heavens, delivering a priceless cosmic payload. Water locked within their icy hearts. Initially, upon striking the scorching crust, these icy fragments instantaneously boiled into vapor, violently returning to the atmosphere. But as the planet's ambient temperature steadily plummeted, this superheated steam finally began to condense. This relentless, apocalyptic deluge raged on for millions of years. Paleoclimatologists theorized that roughly 4.3 billion years ago, liquid water permanently began to pool upon the fractured surface of our world. It gathered first in shallow impact craters, then cascaded down to fill vast tectonic rifts. Fueled by eons of unyielding rain, these isolated reservoirs swelled and merged, eventually drowning the barren rock to form the very first primordial oceans. Earth, once a raging orb of fire, was finally draped in a sprawling mantle of blue. Yet, these primordial oceans were far from ordinary. They were a toxic chemical soup. Heavy salts, volcanic minerals, and alien compounds delivered by meteorites dissolved into the murky depths. And deep below the crust, decaying radioactive isotopes continued to generate massive thermal energy. This subterranean heat fractured the seabed, forging towering underwater geysers. These abyssal chimneys, known as hydrothermal vents, would become the vital crucible for the next chapter of our story. But the biological spark had yet to ignite. The oceans were primed, yet utterly desolate. In these crushing depths, where sunlight could not penetrate and the water was entirely devoid of oxygen, an eerie silence prevailed. Yet, within this scalding abyss, a profound alchemy was quietly taking place. Roughly 3.8 billion years ago, around these superheated vents on the ocean floor, raw chemical elements began to orchestrate an unprecedented miracle. This was no ordinary chemical reaction. Scientists theorized that the intense thermal gradients and rich mineral deposits created the perfect incubator. In this extreme environment, simple organic compounds began aggressively chaining together, forging highly complex molecules. These intricate structures, the primordial precursors to proteins and nucleic acids, became the ultimate building blocks of biology. Gradually, they achieved the impossible. assembling into an architecture capable of self-replication. This was the Genesis spark, the emergence of the very first microscopic entities, the prokaryotes. These primitive ancestors, early bacteria and archaea, had officially crossed the threshold into life, entities so infinitesimal and primitive they possessed neither a beating heart nor a conscious mind. Yet these are our most ancient direct ancestors, organisms so small that their existence remains entirely invisible to the naked eye. Lacking a nucleus or any sophisticated internal architecture, their biology was brutally minimalist. Yet they were the absolute pioneers of Earth, thriving in the crushing abyssal depths where no other entity could survive. Fueled by the raw geothermal power of these abyssal vents, these microscopic pioneers began constructing their own hidden ecosystem in a realm of absolute, perpetual darkness, a crushing deep where the sun's rays had never once pierced. Feasting upon toxic cocktails of sulfur and methane, these resilient organisms relentlessly multiplied, slowly ascending from the Stygian depths to eventually colonize the sunlit reaches of the primordial ocean. High above, Earth's new celestial partner, the Moon, was orchestrating its own critical role in this biological genesis. Its massive gravitational pull relentlessly churned the oceans, giving rise to the very first powerful tidal forces. These primordial tides did far more than merely agitate the waters. They acted as a colossal planetary centrifuge, violently churning and mixing a rich broth of raw chemical elements. And so, along the jagged primordial coastlines, where the restless ocean relentlessly battered the volcanic rock, a secondary dynamic evolutionary crucible was forged. Evolutionary biologists theorized that this relentless tidal rhythm repeatedly forced these rudimentary organic molecules together, catalyzing their fusion into increasingly sophisticated, complex biological structures. This was the ultimate incubator where the very first seed of terrestrial life successfully took root. It marked the dawn of biology's most spectacular odyssey, an unbroken chain of evolution that continues to thrive to this very day. Earth was no longer a sterile rock, tumbling through the void. It had transformed into a dynamic sphere of rolling blue oceans, pulsing with the faint but undeniable rhythm of biological existence. Though these primordial entities were astoundingly primitive, far less complex than even modern bacteria, they managed to permanently scar the face of our planet. Their fossilized monuments, known as stromatolites, still endure today. Entombed within the ancient bedrock of Australia and Greenland, these biological artifacts date back a staggering 3.7 billion years. It was this celestial deluge that finally awakened Earth, transforming it into a living, breathing world. The primordial oceans offered sanctuary for biology to take hold, while the gravitational pull of the Moon dictated its eternal rhythmic heartbeat. These microscopic pioneers were Earth's unsung heroes, the architects who terraformed a barren wasteland into a world overflowing with biological potential. Yet, this grand epic was only just beginning. In the eons to come, these primitive organisms would exhale oxygen, fundamentally rewriting the planet's atmosphere. This would ignite the Cambrian Explosion, a biological renaissance where bizarre, alien-like leviathans would suddenly dominate the ancient seas, and eventually, life would breach the surface, taking its very first defiant steps onto dry land. This is the ultimate saga of Earth, a brutal baptism from fire to water, and from water to the miracle of life. We, who draw breath upon this planet today, owe our very existence to the frozen comets that delivered our oceans, and to those invisible, microscopic pioneers who ignited the spark of biology. So the next time you stand beneath the silver glow of moonlight, watching the restless ocean waves break against the shore, remember, this is the crucible. This is exactly where our incredible story began. The second great chapter in the saga of Earth had drawn to a close. The deluge had subsided, the vast oceans rolled with the tides, and the fragile spark of microscopic life was quietly thriving in the abyssal depths. Yet, in this sweeping cosmic epic, the most dramatic act was still unwritten. The stage was now set for the Great Oxidation Event, a revolution of the air, a defining era where an invisible, microscopic organism would irrevocably alter the destiny of the entire planet. This biological upheaval culminated in the Cambrian Explosion, a breathtaking carnival of evolutionary design, erupting with vibrant colors and bizarre new forms, until finally the pivotal moment arrived. Life shattered the boundary of the water, dragging itself from the primordial surf to leave its very first footprints upon the barren rock, forever transforming a desolate world into a thriving emerald paradise. This epic narrative serves as a profound reminder. We are literally forged from the ash of dead stars. Every breath we draw today is a direct inheritance from that ancient cosmic revolution. Let us plunge deeper into this extraordinary saga, a testament to how absolute devastation acts as the ultimate catalyst for evolutionary rebirth. And so, the second great epoch of our world concluded. The deluge had formed sprawling, restless oceans, and the fragile, microscopic spark of life was now silently flourishing in the deep. Yet, this biology was brutally primitive. The Earth's atmosphere remained a toxic, oxygen-starved void. Life had taken root in the abyss, dominated entirely by simple, single-celled prokaryotes like archaea and ancient bacteria, entities so infinitesimal they would be utterly invisible to the naked eye. They thrived solely on the raw chemical energy vomiting from hydrothermal vents, living entirely without the need or the ability to produce oxygen. Then, roughly 2.5 billion years ago, a radical new organism emerged, cyanobacteria. This vibrant blue-green microbe unleashed a biological alchemy that would irrevocably alter the destiny of our planet. That alchemy was photosynthesis. By harnessing raw solar radiation, water, and carbon dioxide, it manufactured its own fuel, and in doing so, it expelled a highly volatile waste product, molecular oxygen. Relentlessly, the cyanobacteria multiplied, blanketing the global oceans in a living blue-green veneer. This triggered a planetary upheaval known as the Great Oxidation Event. But evolution is ruthless. For the ancient anaerobic denizens of the deep, this newly forged oxygen was a lethal neurotoxin. Its sudden abundance triggered Earth's very first mass extinction. Thousands of primordial species were utterly eradicated. Even the geology of the planet was transformed. Dissolved iron in the oceans violently reacted with the oxygen, rusting the seas and raining down as massive deposits of red iron oxide upon the ocean floor. This monumental chemical reaction laid down vast, rust-red strata across the globe, rendering Earth's surface eerily similar to the barren, oxidized plains of modern Mars. Yet, from this rusted ruin, that very same oxygen forged the definitive pathway for the emergence of new, profoundly complex life. This atmospheric upheaval birthed the ozone layer, a vital planetary shield that finally insulated Earth's fragile surface from the sun's lethal ultraviolet radiation. Over the ensuing eons, atmospheric oxygen steadily surged, culminating at the critical threshold of 21%, the very lifeblood we breathe today. But this biological revolution harbored a devastating dark side. The sudden, overwhelming deluge of oxygen systematically scrubbed potent greenhouse gases, like methane, from the primordial atmosphere. Stripped of its thermal blanket, global temperatures plummeted catastrophically. The entire planet was entombed in a crushing, miles-thick armor of ice, an apocalyptic deep freeze known in geology as Snowball Earth. For millions of years, biological evolution was plunged into stasis, trapped in a blinding white wasteland. But the Earth's inner fires refused to be extinguished. Subterranean volcanoes violently ruptured the ice sheets, belching massive clouds of trapped heat and carbon dioxide, finally shattering the global freeze. As the glacial grip receded, life re-emerged with renewed, desperate vigor. Then, roughly 2 billion years ago, an unprecedented biological miracle occurred. A predatory, primitive archaeon engulfed a smaller, free-living bacterium, but instead of digesting its prey, a profound evolutionary symbiosis was forged. The two entities merged into a single, cohesive unit. This captured bacterium evolved into the mitochondrion, the microscopic cellular engine, or powerhouse that fuels complex biology to this day. This radical partnership unlocked an exponential surge in metabolic energy, birthing the very first eukaryotes. For the first time in planetary history, cells possessed a centralized command center, a distinct, defining nucleus. This monumental evolutionary leap provided the necessary cellular architecture that would eventually allow solitary microbes to assemble into highly structured, multicellular organisms. The primordial oceans soon blossomed with early macrobiology. Primitive sponges rooted themselves to the seabed, while ethereal jellyfish drifted through the currents. The ancient, brutal theater of predator and prey had officially commenced, thrusting life on Earth into an era of unimaginable complexity. Then, roughly 540 million years ago, the primordial seas bore witness to an evolutionary Big Bang, the Cambrian Explosion. This was no literal detonation, but rather a spectacular festival of biological innovation. Almost overnight, the ancient oceans were flooded with a breathtaking array of bizarre, alien-like organisms. An unprecedented cast of creatures emerged from the depths: heavily armored trilobites, the surreal five-eyed opabinia, and hallucigenia, a nightmare-inducing crawler bristling with defensive spikes. For the very first time, biology had weaponized itself, forging complex vision, impenetrable armor, and deadly predatory appendages. The once tranquil seafloor had evolved into a ruthless, bustling, biological battleground. Yet, while the oceans teemed with this ferocious new diversity, the terrestrial world remained an absolute void. Massive supercontinents had formed, but they were utterly barren, sun-scorched wastelands. Endless expanses of jagged rock and desolate dunes dominated the horizon. But then, approximately 470 million years ago, the very first primitive plants dared to breach the surf, taking root along the rugged coastlines. These botanical pioneers shattered the bedrock into fertile soil and pumped massive waves of oxygen into the atmosphere. Eon by eon, they evolved into sprawling, colossal forests, dominated by towering prehistoric flora soaring up to 100 feet into the air. It was as though the Earth had erected its very own emerald skyscrapers. Following this botanical conquest, roughly 430 million years ago, the first animals finally dragged themselves from the sea. Pioneering arthropods, akin to modern millipedes, began to scuttle across the muddy, primordial shores. Then, roughly 375 million years ago, an evolutionary marvel emerged from the shallows. Its name was Tiktaalik, a bizarre chimera, half fish, half tetrapod. Its aquatic fins were anatomically mutating into weight-bearing legs, and deep within its chest, primitive lungs were taking their first crucial gasps of terrestrial air. Imagine a pioneer, a creature hauling itself from the crushing abyssal depths to drag its body across the primordial mud. This was the definitive, triumphant moment when biology finally shattered its aquatic prison, leaving the very first footprints upon the terrestrial realm. In that instant, desolate, sun-scorched wastelands began to bloom into vibrant, living tapestries. For millions of years, terrestrial evolution flourished unchecked. But then, a new epoch dawned upon the Earth, an era that would violently overwrite the planet's destiny. This was the dawn of the Dinosaurian reign. Roughly 250 million years ago, all of Earth's terrestrial land masses were fused into a single, colossal supercontinent, the almighty Pangaea. The global climate was a sweltering, hyper-humid greenhouse, choked with sprawling jungles of monolithic ferns and ancient cycads. It was within this suffocating hothouse that a new lineage of terrestrial masters emerged. The reptiles, fortified by robust skeletal architecture, impenetrable, moisture-retaining scales, and the revolutionary evolutionary leap of laying amniotic eggs directly on dry land, they were biologically engineered to conquer the continents. The stage was set for a new apex dynasty, yet their ascension would be forged in hellfire. Just prior to the dawn of the Triassic period, the Earth was violently ruptured by yet another apocalyptic mass extinction. Cataclysmic hypervolcanism, radical climate shifts, and corrosive torrents of acid rain utterly eradicated 90% of all living species. Yet this unfathomable devastation essentially wiped the ecological slate clean, paving the way for the ancestors of the dinosaurs. An elite, resilient clade of reptiles, the archosaurs, miraculously survived the carnage. They ruthlessly capitalized on this vacant, post-apocalyptic world. Driven by superior bone density, lethal agility, and an unparalleled capacity for rapid adaptation, they thrived. From this fierce Archosaurian bloodline, approximately 233 million years ago, the very first true dinosaurs materialized. These primordial titans were initially small, lethal bipeds, nimble apex hunters like Eodromeus and Herrerasaurus. They were lightning-fast, hyper-agile carnivores. Yet, as eons passed, evolutionary divergence took hold. Certain lineages adapted to herbivory, like the colossal Plateosaurus, whose elongated neck allowed it to harvest foliage from the towering prehistoric canopy. In a terrestrial landscape with virtually no competition, these prehistoric pioneers exploded in both size and diversity. But how exactly did the dinosaurs manage to maintain their absolute, terrifying dominion over the Earth for an astonishing 150 million years? What were their lethal hunting strategies, their complex social structures, and their daily struggles truly like? And what catastrophic event finally erased their majestic existence from the face of the planet? To uncover the truth, await Part 2 of this documentary series. If you are watching this broadcast after June 2026, please check the description below for the continuation. Because, my friends, this is not merely the geological biography of a planet. This is our ultimate origin story. We are literally sculpted from the atomic ash of dying stars. Every breath we take is a direct inheritance from the Great Oxidation Event, and our deepest genetic ancestry is inextricably bound to the bizarre leviathans of the Cambrian seas. Our grand cosmic odyssey does not end here. We must still chart the epic timeline from the fiery dawn of Earth to the rise of modern humanity. In the next installment, we will witness the thrilling saga of the dinosaurs, from their violent genesis to their apocalyptic demise. To join us on this definitive journey through deep time, from the planet's birth to the modern human epoch, make sure to subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this cosmic voyage with your friends. We will see you very soon in the next chapter.